Football Manager might be canceled, but there are still saves in need of saving, particularly ones with promotion pain, like this one from Decline with Storrington FC, the Mighty Swans. In this save, I wanted to take an amateur club in England to the Premier League, which I succeeded in. I started in the 10th division of England and won the championship in 2033. Now in my first season as a Premier League team, I had preseason odds of 2,000 to 1. Halfway through the season, I don't seem to be able to win a game, and even players like Gaston Vidal are unable to perform. Is this salvageable in this season, or should I just accept the loss and try to get promoted again next year? I hope the first option is possible. Thanks in advance. Now, there will be some people that look at a save like this and they go, why are you saving it? This person managed to go up from the 10th division to the Premier League in like 10 years. And it's because everybody hits their struggles in their own way, and there's nothing more painful than being wildly successful for a really long amount of time and then winning 2 of your 23 matches. But I want to be very clear, and I have said this before, the jump from the championship to the Premier League is arguably the hardest jump that you're going to get in the entire game quality-wise. The amount of money that teams that are regularly in the Premier League have compared to the amount of money that you don't have is unbelievable. Of course, my favorite way to look at this is you can check out the salary per year in the team detailed section, where we can see that Storrington is spending a smidge under 30 million per season on salary. The next closest team is Nottingham Forest at 62, and then there are only 2 other teams that are under 100 million in average wage. And so you're fighting against a completely different weight class here. But you obviously already knew that. Just assessing the team, I just want to take a moment to appreciate a guy named Usain McAdams. That is... So we're not going to be getting rid of him. You said even Gaston Vidal has been struggling? Well, yeah. You see, this, honestly, is the number one mistake people make when they get promoted, is they assume players that were really good at the previous level are going to continue to be pretty good. Gaston Vidal is a great wonder kid to have. He is also not a world beater, and when you look at his ability right now, it is not surprising at all that he is not like a star player. In fact, he's delivering just about what I would expect, like a 6.9 rating. That is above what I would expect. A 6.9 rating would be what I would expect from this, from a guy like this if you had him on a mid-table team and he was coming in off the bench as a depth option. He's actually outdoing what I think he should be doing on a team that is as bad as yours right now. In fact, Gaston Vidal is one of the 2 people, along with Camilo Amarilla, that you might want to look at selling. Your club is leveraged to the gills. You are secure financially because you have $32 million in your overall balance, but relative to the amount of balance that other teams in this league are able to accumulate, you're nowhere near. I am tremendously disappointed because you are not utilizing any loans to try and make your team better, and this is why we sing the loan song. We literally release loans merch to try to remind people to use loans, and you're still not doing it.
Yeah, promoted every year. Imagine what you could do with loans.
Just kidding, I'd never leave you. But seriously, no loans. You're already, you're financed out of your mind, right? You're over your payroll budget. You got 2 guys that the game considers very high value. 2 guys that are viewed as super high potential players. And I know it feels stupid and potentially painful, but selling somebody for $50 to $70 million would be life-changing for a club of your size. And I know you're looking at this and you're going, how am I going to claw my way out of this? And I'm going to be honest. You got 15 matches left. You're probably going to have at least 8-9 points to make up in those 15 matches. That's a very difficult thing to do. You need a general talent injection and improvement. But that's not a surprise. That's not your fault. You've been climbing up the league so quickly you haven't had time to be at a level and like actually get your whole team up to that level. But your playing time expectations are way out of whack, and you need to sell for money, because you don't have any money. Why is 0% of your transfer revenue made available? That's heinous. You need to get your transfer revenue up. If you are secure financially, you should be able to get that up pretty seriously. But it looks like you might have asked fairly recently. You asked on September 26th, 2033, and they agreed to an increase in transfer revenue. That might be glitched. I mean, you are using a database here. This is the reason to leave the editor on. Like, that might, if you actually had the thing say increase in percentage of transfer revenue and then it's still 0, you have a database on that allows you to start in the 10th division of England. In my opinion, it would be acceptable to increase that percentage of transfer revenue. As long as you are secure financially, I have never played a save where it isn't at 100% after asking once or twice. If you're not secure financially, which you can always see right at the top right here, then if you want to keep the realism, you should edit it down. 60, 50%, that sort of thing. But if you can keep your club stable, there's no reason it shouldn't be at 100, so this might be glitched. One more sneaky thing that's contributing to your downfall, you are not managing your players very well at all. Playing time expectations, because like I was pointing out earlier, they're kind of messed up. You're pissing off a bunch of people. You need to handle this because this right here is dragging down your locker room atmosphere, your team cohesion. It is making everything harder. You don't have the talent to make everything harder and be able to succeed. So it's going to be very difficult the spot that you are in. You have 10 days left in the window. So what you should do is get rid of as many of these upset guys as you possibly can. If you feel like you're not going to be able to satisfy their promise, which feels like you might be able to satisfy one or two of these playing time expectations. So if you're going to satisfy them and you know that for sure, then keep them. If not, look to move them. Stop butchering your team talks. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, these guys that want to go out and get a permanent move or want to leave to get better playing time, get them off your team. With your increased transfer revenue retention and your Premier League status, even if it is very small, a 2.5-star reputation, you should be able to get some money in and maybe with installments take a stab at one of those big type of signings that really helps improve the entire level of your team. Problem is most of those guys aren't really going to be interested in you right now. So I would definitely focus on loans, particularly in the last day or two of the transfer window when teams are looking to unload people for basically free. Next, we have Kiroza07. I've been playing this save for 6 seasons, but struggling to make any progress internationally. I keep buying new prospects, selling them for huge profit the next season. Can't really find any top talents. And generally feel lost on what steps to take. Well, we don't want you to feel lost. That's what we're here to fix. This is at Grotzer AK 1902. This is in one of my favorite leagues, the Austrian Bundesliga. And they started in the 2nd division, battled their way up to the 1st division, and they're stuck in the Admiral Bundesliga. So after getting promoted, have not been able to catch up to Red Bull Salzburg, of course. So you're worried about your international progress, but you should. The first thing you need to do if you're in a league that is not a top 5 league is become dominant in your league. You need to beat Salzburg. You need to be the best team in Austria. Then you can worry about what's happening continentally. If you're not beating Salzburg yet, whatever you're able to pull off on the continent is a pleasant surprise, but it is not like the goal. You need to be the boss of Austria first, and you're not. Well, look at your transfer history. I mean, you're saying you're selling people for huge profit, but you've sold Julio Diaz here. He's an 18-year-old from Venezuela. You sold him for 10 million and the guy is now worth 100. Now, I realize when you're managing in a league like Austria, you're never going to be able to sell for the true value of a player that, if you were managing in the Premier League, you'd be able to sell them for. And sometimes you need to sell people like Julio Diaz in order to try and make, the money, get the money in the bank so you can make more moves later. But those types of sales need to be this sale that you made the previous season. Issa Sumare. He does not have any more potential, right? He's a guy that's already at the peak of his career. You get a $9 million offer for him to go to Tianjin, and you take it. And that's the sort of transfer that can really help. Or Daniel Maldini. You get an offer for a serious amount of money for him. These are very smart transfers, right? Because unless they're late developers, which is a thing in the game now, they're not going to be getting any better. And while they're good players that can help you win, getting $18 million for those two guys is very important. That is definitely helpful. And then this year, you also managed to turn that into a guy like Kevin Carujo, a saucy natural libero from Uruguay. Now, I love that for you. But you're also making signings that are, they've kind of got me scratching my head a little bit. I have no idea why for example, you've gone and signed Gerardo Franchi. This guy doesn't look like he's ever going to turn into a player that's going to help you, and yet you've thrown, 400 and something thousand at him, which, while that feels insignificant in the grand scheme of international football transfers, when your transfer budget is under $2 million, that's a significant amount of money to spend on a guy that I just don't think's ever really going to be anything. If somebody wants to sign him on a transfer, you just move him. On the flip side, Martin Grieger is an excellent signing. This is the type of guy that can absolutely help you win the league. I just feel like you might have mischaracterized this a little bit because you had a very good year there, selling a couple of good players, buying a couple of good players, but this past year doesn't make as much sense to me because I get the feeling, considering you'd only brought in Julio Diaz a year or two ago, I don't think he would have been putting contract pressure on yet. I like the way you managed to loan won him back. That was nice. But this just feels like it's selling early. You know, you're selling an 18-year-old. Unless he's forcing his way out, which I don't think he was on your team long enough to do, you should not have been selling this guy. You want to let him grow in with your team. But, dude, I'm going to level with you. Even though I'm nitpicking your transfer strategy, the quality of players on your team, you should be doing better in the league than you are, at least with the guys at the top here. Now, Ariel Perez, I am not a believer in this guy. You seem to put a lot of value in him. I do not think that he's very good. I mean, legitimately, we were looking at a team in the Premier League in our last one. This team is better. So what the hell is your tactic? I mean, it's not like you got any crazy messed up tactics that don't make a lot of sense here. I don't know what you're using at what time, but you have a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, and a 4-2-4. I would say that this way you've decided to do your lines on the 4-2-4 doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That needs to be up there. I get the thought process. You're like, oh, this is a more advanced tactic, so let me balance out how advanced those guys are by bringing back the front line. And in the end, what you're doing is basically giving the other team much more space to try and mess with your much higher line. You don't even have a high back line. You have a much higher back line. Okay, so if you have a mid block here, there is some space for these guys. Even if you've got the closing down, even in it get stuck in, right? There's just like naturally, because this takes away more of the space. If you're doing this, you're giving them a little more space and you have a ton of room behind your back line that is open. The 4-2-4 is a beautiful tactic in part because you get a hat on a hat against a back four. 2 center backs, 2 fullbacks, right? If you have one of these guys come up and take away their first outlet in here, this is one of the best pressing, like one of the best pressing tactics that you can possibly have, and you're kind of neutering it a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with your scouting. You have good players on your team. I think there is something wrong in the way you framed this up in your mind. I think you've only sold one hot prospect on your team. You shouldn't have sold him, and you're not quite best of the rest yet. Keep signing those young guys, and every year come in and look at the RB Salzburg players to see how your players line up. I've managed in the Austrian Bundesliga before. You should be finishing at least second with this team that you have right now. And they're all very young. Let them grow together for a year or two. Sell the ones that aren't quite good enough, or if you get a life-changing offer for a player. Next! This is Olton32 managing Eastleigh. I've been in a rut since I was promoted, such is the theme, and subsequently relegated from the Premier League in my save with Little Eastleigh. I dragged them up from the National League all the way to the Prem in 4 consecutive promotions, which obviously is the biggest and obvious reason why we struggled in our loan season in the Prem. Don't joke about loans. Okay, that's ridiculous. My tactic is foolishly attacking, but I stuck with it as a sense of pride that we at Eastleigh don't back down from anyone. I would appreciate any ideas you may have. I love your channel and look forward to your exponential rise on this here internet. Thank you, dude. Have a look at my right back, Eugene Pascu. He has the potential to go right to the very top. You got it. Maybe I will. Okay, Eastleigh from the National League, finished 6th, won the playoff, then first, then second. Absolutely miraculous run, but last year, a 19th place finish. And I'm assuming that goal difference wasn't too pretty. I mean, he gave up 86 goals in 38 matches. That was the most in the league, but scored 44. I mean, better than Hull City. But if you're coming off 4 straight promotions, there should be a pretty obvious gap here. If we look at the salary spend, you're 15th in salary spend in the championship after having just been in the Premier League. Now, you do get to enjoy the massive parachute payments that have basically sorted your balance and given you a lot of payroll. But I can tell you the issue right now is that the incredibly attacking tactic that you were using was screwing you. I don't know who you had at center back last year, but you're rolling out with Adama Galas and Ivo Ivanov, which, by the way, most Bulgarian name anyone's ever had, ever. They just don't have the athleticism to keep up with the types of forwards that you're asking them to keep up with. And if you're going complete wingback and inverted wingback, right? You've got a 3-man defense on an extremely high line against world-class opponents. That means Galas and Ivo Ivanov are stepping out to defend those Premier League wingers because these guys are often getting caught further up the field. Look, love the idea of you being like, we don't back down from anyone. I'm playing this one tactic. It is what it is. And there are certain attacking tactics that you can use even with a team that's much worse than everybody else. But you had the guy. I mean, unless you sign this guy, you signed this guy for the Premier League last year. Oh, what a load. Look at the strength. Look at the balance. The jumping reach is solid too. This guy is a wall. He's like a poor man's Mitrovic. You could have played a more direct, not as aggressive pressing Manchester City 4-3-3 style. And that's sad. We've been robbed of some prime Barclays football from you. But yeah, dude, if this is one of your star players in the Prem, man, I'm afraid to look at your other 2 star players. Okay, this one, yes, absolutely incredible. Yeah. What a find he is. Pedro Milan's being your right wing. I'm sorry, you gotta figure something else out there. You are trying to move Jack Hanna, but yeah, him being one of your star players. This right here, this reeks of the type of guy that, oh, he's been in my team for years and we keep being great, so I just keep him on my team. At a certain point, everybody reaches the level where they're no longer good, and Jack Hanna's definitely reached that level. I don't think you're gonna get any money for him. You're overpaying him right now as it is. I want you to remove the asking price on Blagojevic immediately. Oh, now you have a promise to sell this guy. That's fine. As much as I love this guy, if you get good money for him, that'll allow you to really restructure this team. You need to increase your transfer revenue retention, so I'd ask about that right now. Because you are obviously rich financially. That should be 100%. You get 100% of the Jovanovic transfer. You're probably sitting on 50 million in the transfer budget. You'll have your pick of a couple of players, add in some loans down from the Premier League that can make your team a lot better. Just a few more Pashkus and you're going to be okay. But they're just random guys. Like this Lee McCartney guy, bright future. He is not good enough to be playing for you yet. And I'm blown away that this guy is your starting right wing. Just absolutely blown away. But don't get me wrong, you've failed on a couple of accounts here. You've not managed your playing time well. That's why you're looking at Ivo Ivanov and Osvaldo Valenzuela wanting to leave. And there's always going to be a guy like Jovanovic that wants to leave because you got relegated, basically. And trust me when I say this, you want to get rid of those guys. You want to know how teams end up spiraling back down the divisions? It's keeping those guys, and they play horribly for you. You never want to use and rely on somebody on the field that does not want to be there. Football Manager punishes you for that the same way you get punished for it in real life. So get these guys moving, get 100% transfer revenue retention, and get back to how you got out of the championship last time. And when you go up, for the love of all that's good and holy, play like that. Please. You can do this. You can trigger the press once they break through your line, and don't stop crosses. You have 2 aggressive wingbacks, and then you're telling like Ivanov and Gallus are going to be dropping into the corner, and you want them to run out to stop crosses. You're probably giving up a lot of tap-ins because then they'll just pass it back to the top of the box, and you don't have the numbers in place yet. Stop crosses just isn't feeling like a smart move here. So you can play your Heenan ball. Just start lower. Next! This is Riley6996 with Blackpool FC. Got my team in position where we can definitely call ourselves the best of the rest. Now I feel stagnated around that spot. Also trying to maximize the use of a 5-3-2 DM wingback. Tried branching off with my own tactic, but can't come up with a good setup. Now stuck using RDF plug and play. It works, but I want some sort of individuality. I totally understand this, but what I want to attack is one word that you used in your submission. Stuck. Football Manager is a video game. You can play it however you want. You should never feel stuck in anything that the game is not forcing you to be stuck in. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, the game's forcing me to be stuck in this tactic because I can't come up with something more successful. You can. I know RDF. He's really good at Football Manager. He made the Final Four of the Football Manager World Cup. And he designs tactics all the time and makes videos about them to make you better. But it is always possible for you, whoever you are watching this video, to come up with your own tactic that can win you every trophy that you want to win. And there is no more rewarding feeling than doing that. So you're saying best of the rest. I'm going to test your theory out. You're 4th, 6th, 3rd, 4th. I mean, we're looking at you're 22 points off, you're 12 points off, you're 23 points off, and now you're 16 points off. If you're saying best of the rest, like the best non-Big Six team, then yeah, sure. But you have absolutely stagnated for a few years. And there's one thing you need to be doing at the point that you are at right now, and I'm just going to check to see if you're doing it. And I don't think you are. Last year, you bought 3 players, and I'm not seeing one that has that super high potential. Then you come in and buy 24-year-old Lenny Yoro, which is, look, Lenny Yoro's a great pickup. He's going to be a great player, right? But you're dropping $78 million for the finished product, which you can do when what you really should be doing. Actually, I'm having a hard time dumping on this. I was getting ready to dump on this, but there's some really good transfers in here. Yunus Emre Konak has developed like crazy, insane player. And then you got Pau Kubarsi for like $15 million. I don't know how you've managed to swing that, but now he's worth 60. But look, brother, you are a Champions League Premier League team. You have access to the best wonder kids in the world. Not the ones from Barca's Academy, but guys like this. You found one of them. Cristobal Byron. Right, where you're looking for guys that are able to step in and play a role for your first team now that can turn into absolutely unstoppable world beaters. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for these guys all over the world. You are in maybe everybody's favorite part of the game, at least my favorite part of the game, where you were able to look around and you have your pick of the Wonder Kids. They're always going to be interested in you. You are a Champions League Premier League club. But what you're doing is you're worried that all of that is going to fall apart. So you've got your downloaded RDF tactics and you feel stuck using them because you're so far into the save that if you change, then all of a sudden it goes terribly and you end up getting fired. You're going to feel awful. But I'm going to be honest, I don't think this tactic is like particularly what you should be using. You're starting this guy who is not at the level of the rest of your team. I'm just going to square with you right now. He is a fun, interesting player, but his development's kind of done and he doesn't really have the ability that lines up with somebody like Gaston Schmidt. I don't like the lack of determination, not necessarily for development reasons, just lower determination players seem to underperform for me on the pitch, just something to keep in mind. But you also have a guy like this, Kim Sang-hee. You've got him in the starting lineup, and it says he's only a breakthrough prospect, so maybe there's some other guys out here that you'd rather put in that position, like Paulo or something. But at the very least, for a team that is young, you seem to have a very shallow team. This is not a big team for the Premier League, especially, like, what's your registration look like? Dude, get more players on this team, man. I have never seen somebody in the Wonder Kid stage that's just not signing enough players. I mean, you're in love with selling players, which is great because that's something that not a lot of people are in love with. You take a lot of the players that you have on your team and like this sale of Tanner Tessman to Fenerbahce, Oliver Sorensen, like these are good sales for the money that you're getting out of this. I don't really agree with Mattia Viti. He's a really good player. He seems to be undervalued by the game and the ratings and stuff, but he's got great size. Athleticism's really solid, very technically skilled. This guy's definitely a, like, if you needed a backup center back, that's a bad sale for just $33 million. Also, Leonardo Buta. I'm aware I don't know all of the context of these sales, but this guy is definitely a good athletic, kind of aggressive fullback option, especially considering you're getting $22 million out of him. It's just each of the last couple of seasons, you have a ton of sales, and a lot of them are quite smart. I'm just concerned that maybe you could have kept a couple more of these guys on your team so you'd have an actual squad. Dude, in the Prim, I can't even imagine having this few players. You've got, look at the number of tournaments that you are playing in. I keep getting distracted. Your tactic. All right, 5 at the back's definitely the direction you want to go because you have 4 center backs that are listed as at least a regular starter on your team. That is possible to do with just 2 center backs. It's just going to be really hard. Going to be pretty consistent rotation through all of those guys. But you can take Travis Akoma and lower him all the way down to impact sub without him getting upset. So maybe that's something that you'd want to do, in which case you could switch to a back 4 tactic. But there are some really interesting things about this tactic that I feel like you could adjust. Because here's what you should do. Take these tactics that you know work and just start changing little things. Start changing little things to make the tactic maybe just suit your team a little better. Let's take Yunus Emre Konak, for example. Yunus Emre Konak's best ability is his ability to defend. He is a good passer. He is not a bad passer at all. But if we take him in this situation and we go look at, let's say, the attributes that are highlighted for Regista, the ability to dribble, the ability to take touches, the ability to, let's say, shoot from distance, the flair, the off the ball that's required for the very active, very aggressive deep-lying playmaker that is a Regista, that's just not something that he's good at, which is a shame because he's good at so many other things. Like if you put him as a ball winner, for example, he is really leaning into the best attributes that he has. It's not going to make him not pass. It's just going to make him better. He's going to be focusing on the things that he does best. So we'll just take him. We'll just put him as a ball winner on support. We still want him to be able to move around and everything. This is another good example of a guy that's definitely not being utilized correctly, okay? A complete wingback on attack has got to be creative and smooth off the ball and technically proficient. That's not what this guy is. He is more of an athlete, more of a hard runner. There's no reason for him to be on complete wingback. You should probably just have him on wingback on support so that you're not relying on his his creative abilities. Honestly, looking around your team, I'm thinking we might be going for a very unique tactic here. You have a very talented midfield, whether it be Dennis Rodriguez and his playmaking abilities that I'd probably slight right there, or Yarmolyuk, who's more of a Metsala type of guy. I'd probably have him Metsaling on like that side or something so he can get in the channel. He just has more of a winger's skill set, a little bit better with the ball. You've got Paulo. This guy's nasty. He's got 19 vision. He can see through walls. And of course, this Niklas Bork guy. Part of me wants you to have a tactic that kind of looks like this. And you have a ball winner here, and then like a defensive midfielder on support here. Get rid of pass it shorter. What are we doing here, man? What are we doing here? I've actually never played this tactic before, but I feel like with the personnel that you have, it might be able to work. This is also a possibility because you have very, very talented players, like 3 or 4 of them, that can play in this position. Just get your best players on the field in a situation where they're able to succeed. You never have to worry about being too exposed defensively if you're playing with this sort of setup. But you're not getting your best players on the field playing a 2-striker tactic, and some of the roles that these players are on are just not leaning into their strengths at all. That's all you need to be thinking about. I made massive changes. You don't need to make massive changes. Just tweak the tactics that you're using from RDF as you feel comfortable, as logically makes sense to you. Next, from Destroyers and with Monopoly and Ghana. Nice. Finally got Monopoly to Serie A from Serie C after a lot of agony. However, now that I'm here, it feels like we weren't actually ready for it because we've been getting demolished every game. We're not playing a 15th or lower team, including letting 5 go to Juventus. I want to commit to the 5-3-2 setup I was using, but I did pivot to a 5-2-2-1 against Empoli. Winning the game feels meaningless, though, because their team is so bad anyways in my eyes, and I squeaked in. I have players like Ayari Webster and Mukau, who I think are all Serie A ready, but they also feel like they're just underperforming, and I haven't gotten a transfer budget higher than 200K at any point in this save. Yeah, Italy struggles for money a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. All right, so how many years did it take you? 2 years in Serie C, 3 years in Serie B. Pretty standard. Honestly, dude, a classic case of promotionitis here. And what is promotionitis? You're just used to having a good team. And you know what? Relative to the rest of the teams here, your team's not good. But you know what is good? You're not near the relegation zone right now. I realize you've only won 8 of your 26 matches, but there are a lot of other teams doing worse than that. Sure, there are ways you could improve, but you are by no means in a bad spot here. Let's take a look at your tactic. That seemed to be the main concern. Interestingly enough, the exact tactic that we were just looking at, and I don't like squishing the lines here. You've got a higher back line and a mid block. At the very least, I'd probably want to play like that because in my opinion, you're undoing some of the advantage that you create with having a back 7 by squishing it up and giving them space to run in behind that back 7. Also, out of a mid block, don't prevent short goalkeeper distribution. You don't have the personnel for it. You've got the flying triangle up here, but you're basically just dragging these guys out of the way trying to prevent short goalkeeper distribution. This is not a tactic unless you're all the way up here and you have man marks on your fullbacks to their fullbacks. Basically, it's not a tactic that you are going to be able to press the distribution of the other team successfully out of. That's fine. You just got to know when to not do it. All right, and you're playing very direct, and yet you have a striker who is not athletically gifted in strength, size, or speed. So that is a concern for me. I'm just going to make sure he is like your top striker, and it looks like he is. Yeah, I don't know if the secret is to play super direct when the fastest player on your front 3 is Charlie Webster. It's just not conducive to success because there's nobody that's going to be able to hold the ball up with their strength or run behind the team. I know you're thinking like, oh, I'm a lower league team or I'm a worse team. Maybe I need to play with more directness. No, I mean, the strength of the guys that you have on your team is technical quality. Well, I mean, Giuseppe De Ciro just doesn't really have that strength. Guys that you thought were Serie A ready. Ngalea Mukau, I mean, yes, if you want to be a lower level Serie A team, then this guy is Serie A ready, but not actually. In terms of Webster, it's kind of the same thing. Like, this is not a guy that is going to start at wing for a, or attacking midfield where you've got him right now, for a team that is consistently and comfortably making it into European places, which is where you want to get. He's just not that guy. Yassine Ayari's a little bit closer. He's got good intelligence. He's got good ball control. Obviously, guy can play anywhere under the sun, which is incredibly helpful. Don't expect a huge improvement to his attributes at this point. He's got one more year of improving. You might get one. You might get a couple that go up by 1, right? But none of these guys are Floria quality, and there is a dearth of young talent on this team. You've loaned in a couple of players, which, thank you. Nobody else has done that today. But you are in a position financially where the most important thing you can do is sell one of your players. The most valuable player you have is Giuseppe De Cirio. I would sell him this summer. You're going to stay up in the league. It looks very comfortable that you will. And the most important thing is not getting relegated. The longer you stay in the league, the more your reputation is going to go up, the more your board's going to get comfortable giving you money to work with. But the fastest path to that money is selling one of the couple players that you have. And based off what I've seen from the players on your team, none of these guys are unsellable. You'll be able to sign a loanee, somebody that drops out for free, to replace these guys' contributions with the team. Because you need to get your money up. You do. You're right. Selling players is how you get your money up in this situation. And the longer you stay in the league and the better you do, the faster you're going to get those, the faster that the money is going to come in. Because they're going to get more and more valuable. You're feeling stuck? That's how you get yourself unstuck. But you're not doing terribly. And not getting relegated is a win this season. Because every year you stay in Serie A, it gets easier to build a good team. You get more access to more money and more reputation to sign better players. But most of all, I'm glad that we're all still enjoying Football Manager 2024. Well, hopefully you guys are enjoying it more after the saves have been saved. Let us know how it goes in the subsection of the Discord. I'll see y'all on stream. And if you want to watch me save more saves, of course, there's more saves being saved. It's all on Football Manager 24 because it's true. That's the last Football Manager that's ever going to be released.